If life is not going the way that you want it to go, or the vision or the dream that you have in your heart hasn't materialized, and it's been a long time, and you've been very weary, and you've been very exhausted, and you've been just really discouraged, and there's a part of you that's wondering if the thing that you have in your heart, the dream, the vision, the ministry, the business, is ever going to materialize, the Bible has an answer for you. In the book of Ezekiel, God takes the prophet up into an experience. He takes the prophet up and he takes him to a valley. And in this valley, there's a multitude of dead men's bones in this valley, which means these were soldiers. They had been dead. They had been dead a long time. The Spirit of the Lord poses a question to Ezekiel. The question is this. The question is not, how long have the bones been dead? The question is not, what are your feelings about the dried bones that you're looking at? The question was, can these bones live? That's step one. In the face of the impossible situation that you're looking at right now, the dream that hasn't manifested, the partner that you haven't manifested yet, you don't have a husband yet, your career hasn't taken off, your body hasn't improved, your family dynamic hasn't improved, are you open to redirecting your attention to the possibility that things can be better? That's step one. Ezekiel answers and says, "Oh God, which is really good for us, because the ideal perfect answer that Ezekiel should have made when the Lord, for God's sakes, the Lord is taking you into an experience. You're talking to God more or less face to face here. The answer, the correct and the proper and the more spiritually matured A+ answer should have been, yes, Lord, you are the God of resurrection. Of course you can resurrect these bones." Ezekiel didn't say that. He said, "Oh Lord, which is good for us, because if you can honestly say, in a perfect world, right, the impossible situation that you're looking at right now, the A+ faith answer would be to say, I don't care how impossible this looks, God is still able to do it. If you know in yourself that you're not able to make that emphatic statement, just saying, Lord, I trust you, and I trust that you can turn it around, is all he needs to move you into step two. And step two is, he tells Ezekiel, speak to the dry bones, tell them to come up. He spoke to the dry bones, they came forward, the bones came up, and then the flesh and the sinew came around the bones of these soldiers. What does step two mean? Put your hand to something, meaning put your hand to a class, put your hand to a book, put your hand, like put up the camera and just start talking. Put your hand to something. There is throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, there is no such thing as God working a miracle for a person who did not first have to put their hand to something. Before Jesus turned the water into wine, he required that the servants draw the water out. Jesus did not draw the water out for them. Before the Red Sea parted, God required that Moses stretch out his staff over the sea. When the plagues were being released, at one point, God told him to strike the earth, and that's when one of the plagues manifested. If you want a miracle follows your movement and your action. Put your hand to something, that's step two. And then step three, he said, call the Spirit into it. Speak to the four winds and call the Spirit back into the body, which is very interesting, because in the book of Genesis, that's exactly what God did. God created man from the dust of the earth, and then he spoke the Spirit into it. And so when you're in a place where you're facing an impossibility, or things aren't going your way, things aren't moving the way you want them to move, are you open to redirecting your attention onto the possibility of it being different? One. Two, put your hand to something. Whatever it is that you believe you're called to do, start something. Whether that's doing research, whether that's asking questions, whether that's ChatGPT, whether that's starting the first chapter of the book, put your hand to something. And then step three, invoke the resurrection power and the Spirit into that thing and say, this thing is going to prevail. This thing's going to work out. God's going to breathe into this, and this is going to turn. And if you hold to these three steps, eventually you'll see the miraculous hand of God move into your situation to change and turn things around.